After the release of Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Team were thinking of featuring Shadow in a spin-off game of his own. It made the most logical sense at the time, since the character became instantly popular with the release of Sonic Adventure 2, which was the main reason why he was brought back in Sonic Heroes. When production started on the game, the crew wanted to introduce weapons into the game's core gameplay, which was mostly introduced as around a time games were gearing to be more mature than back in the late 90s, when platformers and more lighthearted games overtook the mass appeal. Games like Metal Gear Solid 3, Halo Combat Evolved, and of course, Grand Theft Auto 3 were much more appealing because of the changing demographic. So the game introduced guns into the moveset of Shadow. They also introduced a morality system to have players progress the story in their own way, and added swear words into the game with stuff like hell and damn, which caused the game to originally be rated T for teen by the ESRB. But in the same year, they introduced the new E10 and up rating, so Sega altered some of the scenes in the game so that it could fit the new rating to not fully alienate from Sonic's main demographic, which are kids. And on November 15th of 2005, in North America, Shadow the Hedgehog released. This game is probably the most interesting Sonic game to talk about nowadays for the most insane reasons if you ask me. Upon release, Shadow the Hedgehog received mixed reviews from critics at the time, with some of the lowest scores in the series thus far, with most people saying the game was not fun to play and the adult tones made the game feel like it was confused more than anything. We do not know the exact sales numbers of this game, as all we know is that by May 17th of 2006, the game reached around 1 million copies sold, and the game would get a greatest hits release on PS2 and Player's Choice on Gamecube. So the game probably did well, but it is highly uncertain at the moment. My history with Shadow the Hedgehog is very weird. I was primarily a Nintendo and Xbox household as a kid, but for some reason we had a PlayStation 2 back in the day, which became the machine I would use to play some of the Sonic games I didn't have on my Gamecube, like Sonic Riders and Sonic Mega Collection Plus. But we also did get some other games on the PlayStation 2, like Crash Bandicoot The Wrath of Cortex and Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. Sometime in 2010, I remember my dad picked me up from school and handed me a PS2 disc of a game called Shadow the Hedgehog, and I remember being really excited to pop it into my PS2 and play it. I played all the way to Iron Jungle and gave up after thinking the game was really hard, and I was feeling burnt out from it thanks to the loading screens on the PS2 version, which took forever. Much like almost every other Sonic game I covered on the channel thus far, I later beat the game in my teen years, and remember thinking that the game had its moments of being on par with the previous 3D Sonic games, but it's also held back by some of the new decisions that kept it from being good. Today, I want to explore Shadow the Hedgehog, its story, its gameplay, levels, and overall tone, to see if it had something going for it to be redeemable, or if it was beyond saving. This is the duality of Shadow the Hedgehog. The premise of the game won't make a lot of sense if I don't connect it to the story of the game, which is one of the bigger talking points about it. So I will save the premise of the game for the story segment and just move on to the rest of the game like the presentation. Similar to Sonic Heroes and many other games of the 6th generation, Shadow the Hedgehog used the RenderWare engine. Since most likely similar to Sonic Heroes, it made porting the game to the other consoles of the time a lot more easier, which is why most RenderWare games of that generation were mostly cross-platform games. In terms of the actual look of the game, it feels a little all over the place in terms of colors and overall character designs. This is one of the more bleaker looking games in the series, which makes sense for the premise of the game being about an alien invasion and Shadow using guns and doing evil things depending on your actions. But there are also some areas that look vibrant and nice on the eyes, like the futuristic grids of Digital Circuit and Mad Matrix, the yellows and oranges of Circus Park, and the greens of Prison Island. But one of the problems that this game has is the level aesthetics not being all that diverse if you ask me. While there are around 23 levels in the game, they tend to use the same few set pieces or aesthetics as another stage in the game. You have city levels, jungle or nature controlled levels, digital levels, government facility levels, ruin levels, and comet levels. The only aesthetics that are different in this game are Circus Park, Cryptic Castle, and Lava Shelter, with them being a circus level, a haunted castle level, and an Eggman facility level. While there are set pieces and or aesthetics we have seen in previous games, I don't mind them here as they offer a little bit of diversity in this point. Another thing about this game that feels all over the place in its presentation is the clashing and character models. Sonic Adventure 2, while not realistic looking, was made with the more muted colors of Sonic Adventure 2 in mind. Sonic Heroes went for a more vibrant look for the game, as it was made to bring in more people to the franchise, so having a more vibrant look to the characters and levels of the game was what they did indeed. That was a dumb sentence I wrote. Now, Shadow does something I have never seen in many games from that era or even nowadays, which is that they use models and textures from both Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes. The humans are mainly based off of the Sonic Adventure 2 look, and the Sonic characters are using their Sonic Heroes designs, which makes scenes where a Sonic characters interact with a human, like the cutscene with the Gun Commander and Shadow in Cosmic Fall, or Shadow interacting with Maria in Lost Impact, look visually jarring. It's also very clear that the look of the humans was the look they were primarily going for, as the Black Arms in Black 2 have that more muted and gritty look to them, similar to how the humans looked in Sonic Adventure 2. Also, the fact that this game wants to be taken seriously when we have cartoon characters that look cartoony, hanging out with gritty aliens and humans, it's just something that kills all sense of tone, if you ask me. I should also mention that I am playing this game on the Nintendo Gamecube, which, while not the version I grew up with, is the version I own to this day, and for the most part runs at a solid 60 FPS. The only version of Shadow the Hedgehog that you should not play is the PS2 version for similar reasons I said about Sonic Heroes in my Sonic Heroes review, with worse fidelity, worse shadows, inconsistent frame rate, and long load times. On an unironically positive note, I think that the CG cutscenes and promotional artwork for the game is some of the best in the series. Compared to the 3D renders from Sonic Heroes, I think that the 3D renders for the Sonic characters that was made for this game look a lot better, as they fit into the overall aesthetic for Shadow with the more muted looking colors. Wish that was brought to the actual models for these characters, but alas. They also have a bunch more detail added to them, like the reflective sheen that was added to Shadow's eyes in this render of him, as well as the strands on the gloves of all the characters. These are just great 3D renders of the characters, though I will say that this render of the Gun Commander is one of the most cursed renders I've seen in a Sonic franchise. The CG cutscenes in this game are really beautiful, as we see the level of detail from the 3D renders being added to the characters in these cutscenes, making them some of the highest quality CG cutscenes in the series. To end the discussion on Shadow's presentation, let's talk about the soundtrack to this game. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I personally love the soundtrack to this game. So much in fact that I imported a CD release from Japan, which contains all the songs from the game, from level tracks, menu tracks, and cutscene tracks. The only songs missing are the vocal tracks. The main genre of music used for this game is hard rock, since it plays a lot with the guitar riffs that are heavily associated with the genre. But the game also uses some electronic music for the two digital stages. I can see why someone would say that the game's soundtrack doesn't work for them, as heavy rock is not everyone's cup of tea, but it definitely is mine, and there are a lot of tracks in this game that just work for me. There are also 7 new vocal tracks added to the game, but we will talk about 2 of them when we reach the end of Shadow. One of the songs is a remix of EGGMAN, which is a nice remix of the song, but I think it only shows up a few times in the game, so it's not worth mentioning that much. The other 4 vocal tracks play at the end of a specific pathway you do in the game. If you end up playing the neutral run of the game, you will get the song Waking Up, which is probably my favorite vocal song that plays in the credits. If you align on the dark or semi-dark side of the game, you will get the song Almost Dead, which is one of my lesser favorite vocal songs in the game, and it sounds a little too edgy with the lyrics and the instrumentation.
No more gods, no more graves, your friend of being. No more life, no more death, somewhere in between.
If you end on the semi-hero path, you'll get the song Chosen One, which is a good fitting song for the hero ending of that path, and is a song I like quite a bit, even if some of it is trying to be serious but not working out in the end. If you get the pure hero path, you will get the song All Hail Shadow, which is probably the most iconic song associated with Shadow the Hedgehog. I do think it is a good song, but I personally find it gets a little repetitive after a while, and I prefer the unused track of the game Who I Am, but still a good song. Shadow the Hedgehog is built off of the previous 3D Sonic games since it uses the same gameplay style of the adventure formula, but also does its own thing to stand out from the previous games, similar to Sonic Heroes. In this game, you are only controlling as Shadow, so do not expect to play as any of the other characters like Sonic, Knuckles, or Espio, which is interesting back then, since platformers of the 6th generation were into different characters you could play as or add new playstyles to add a bit of variety to the game through gimmick levels. But Shadow, you just play as him and he plays the same with a few added things to spice it up a bit. Now, handling a 3D Sonic game is one of the most important aspects to get right about it, since while yes, Sonic is someone who goes fast, if you don't feel in control of him at all times, then the game becomes more annoying when the game asks more of you later on in the game. When comparing Shadow's handling to the previous Sonic games, it is somehow even worse than Sonic Heroes. Sonic Heroes, while faster than the adventure games, was a lot more slippery, which led to many moments in the game that felt unwieldy. Though it wasn't the worst thing in the game, as the game incentivized you to use the other control types to make platforming more manageable. Shadow, by comparison, is like if you played only as the speed type character by making it even worse. Shadow's acceleration is higher than in Sonic Heroes, as it goes from no speed to max speed in about 2 to 3 seconds, which feels pretty unnatural. The acceleration also hinders on how Shadow turns and stops in this game. Turning feels so stiff to do, as you have to basically battle with the control stick to have Shadow turn left or right enough to make some corners. The only other option is to slow down, but when playing a Sonic game, you want to go fast, as that is what he is known for. Stopping also becomes a hassle to do, as you also need to fight with the controls to make him stop on a dime, even more than Sonic Heroes. This already isn't fun, but it gets even worse with the spin dash and the homing attack. The spin dash returns in this game, and it is one of the worst versions of the move in the entire series. The spin dash is done more like the classic Sonic games on the Genesis compared to how it's done in the adventure games, where you need to stop in place and rev it up for a bit, which alone halts all sense of speed that the game had, but also suffers from the fact that the move is as unwieldy as the standard controls for the game. There's also not really a good point to using the move outside of some clever spin dash jumps, which can be done, but it is really hard to do in this game especially, or certain sections of Gun Fortress where it is faster than doing the intended method the stage makes you do. Then there is the homing attack, which is one of, if not the worst homing attack in any 3D Sonic game I have played. I mean, inherently there is nothing wrong with it. You press the A button to home in on a nearby target and attack them. But the problem with the homing attack in this game is that it is also somewhat unwieldy. There is a wide arc when doing the homing attack, which makes it so that sometimes you don't hit the enemy or even home in on them. You just dash over or around them, which can be very annoying to deal with, especially near pits, which just lead you straight towards your death. Somehow the mechanic that was made to make dealing with enemies easier and to reduce frustration actually became more of a hassle to deal with the enemies. It makes it even more frustrating. What a coincidence. Also, there is the light dash in this game, which, similar to how it works in Sonic Generations, you light dash on a set path of rings instead of doing it to any rings like the previous 3D games. I never really had a problem with the light dash in this game before, but I know other people had, so maybe I am just lucky. There is one aspect to this game that I think is far and away an unironic positive towards the controls, which is how they handled grinding on rails. Grinding on rails in Sonic Adventure 2 and Heroes is somewhat of a hassle to deal with, even for veteran players like me, all because of the balance mechanic, where if you stay in balance on the rails, you will go faster, but you also needed to balance a certain way to switch rails, which could sometimes lead to your death, which becomes frustrating. In Shadow, they simplified the system to be a lot more beginner friendly, which isn't a bad thing inherently if you ask me. You press the X button to gain speed, which can't be fun as spamming the button makes Shadow go faster and faster. You also switch rails by moving the stick in the direction you want to move, and then press the X button, which makes it a lot more manageable. This is probably the best rail grinding mechanic in the series, though that's not saying much given the competition. Now to get on with the new stuff that the game introduces that only appear in this game, which are the gun controls, vehicles, and Shadow's chaos powers. Shadow has two bars at the top of the screen, which are Chaos Blast, which is indicated by the red bar, and Chaos Control, which is indicated by the blue bar. To fill up the Chaos Blast bar, you need to defeat human enemies and destroy property. When it is filled up all the way, you press the Y Y button to destroy the area around you with Chaos Blast. On a full bar, you can use the move 3 times back to back, which can be pretty useful for some of the bosses. To fill up the Chaos Control bar, you need to defeat the black aliens and heal up any downed human enemies. When the bar is filled up all the way, you press the Y button in a stage, and Shadow uses Chaos Control to progress through the level, getting you closer to the goal ring. This is definitely the star chaos power of the game, and it also comes in clutch, as if you are over a bottomless pit, even after the bar depletes, you will still be in Chaos Control until you reach solid ground, which is pretty clever on the dev's part. In bosses, Chaos Control is used to stop or slow down the boss, so that you can attack them more. When the bars are filled up all the way, you are also invincible and have infinite ammo until the bar depletes to 0, which is a lot of fun, not gonna lie. Which then leads us to the biggest thing this game added that also made it one of the most polarizing games in the franchise: gunplay. I could talk about guns being in Sonic later on in the video when I talk about the story of the game, but needless to say, I actually think the gunplay in Shadow is very competent. There are a good variety of guns in the game, which can range from your pistols, ARs, Gatling guns, which are the best gun type in the game if you ask me, and even some alien weapons and melee weapons ranging from the ring gun, alien sword, to even a knife. This is not a joke, and it is the funniest shit ever. There are also some out there guns in this game that you can get from being the endings in the game, like the vacuum gun, which sucks up enemies in rings, which is basically a promotion for Billy Hatcher, a satellite gun, and even an Omochao gun, which you shoot Omochao heads out of. Now, you think that having guns in a fast-paced shooter would just kill the pace of the game, but I don't really think that's the case with this game. Shadow employs an auto-aim system, so that when you are near an enemy, you can shoot them, and most of the time, it will hit them and do damage. The guns range in terms of how useful they are, since melee weapons and pistols will not be as good as a Gatling gun or an AR, but the game wants you to try and get the best guns, as similar to Sonic Heroes, enemies in the game have health bars, so getting the best guns leads to more damage towards the enemies and more ammo in your gun. But if you find the aiming in the game tedious, Shadow also has some strafing mechanics where if you hold down the R button and move, Shadow will face a fixed position and you can move left, right, forward, backward, and even jump strafe if you need to be more precise with your shooting. You can even use guns when using vehicles or even the Black Hawk at certain levels. It's honestly a lot better than I think most people were thinking when they first saw this game. Speaking of vehicles, Shadow can use a variety of vehicles from cars, motorcycles, hoverpads, and the Black Hawk thing. Now, the standard vehicles I never really found a use for since they aren't as fast as Shadow when he is just running, but the Black Hawk you do need to use every now and again in levels like Sky Troops and the Ark, where you're basically playing Panther Dragoon without the parts that make Panther Dragoon an awesome game. The gameplay is very weird, where I think they screwed up the parts of the controls from the previous games, yet most of the new things they added to the game to make it stand out from the previous games were cool ideas, and some of them even worked out better than I think they were anticipating. But that doesn't help anything if there are no fun levels in the game. Speaking of levels, there are 22 levels in Shadow the Hedgehog, but you don't go through them in a set order like the other Sonic games. Instead, the game has you complete them via missions due to the non-linear storytelling of the game, which we will get to later. You will play 6 levels in one playthrough of Shadow, and the game wants you to get all 10 endings that are in the game. I will go through the levels and how I feel about them, and then go over my thoughts on the mission structure of the game. The first level you will always play when starting a run of Shadow will be Westopolis. I think this is a fine enough level that shows some of that Sonic design philosophy in a few areas, like when you first enter the destroyed building, and also does a good enough job showing off how the mission structure of the game works. I understand why this level is so hated since you have to play it so many times, but for what it's supposed to be, I don't mind it whatsoever. Next up is Glyphic Canyon, which is one of the more okay stages in the game. There's nothing really noteworthy about the stage, but I didn't really hate it as I just ran through it just fine and had no problems with it. Digital Circuit, on the other hand, is a level I really like. This may not be the first Sonic game with a level that takes place inside a digital world, as Sonic Advance 2 had that with Techno Base Zone, but I think Digital Circuit does a lot with the look and some of the set pieces, like Shadow riding through cables to get further into a level and having to dodge the firewalls inside the computer, which is one of the most clever obstacles in the series. Also helps that the music in this stage is one of the best stage themes in the series, like low-key. Lethal Highway is also a pretty good stage in the game. This one actually has some of that classic Sonic design philosophy with the more skill-based upper path, which could lead to a faster path or a benefit to the player, and a lower path that punishes you, which I like quite a bit. It is also the stage that makes you feel the fastest, as the mission definitely wants you to be fast, though I will get to that in a bit. The next stage is Cryptic Castle, which is a stage that I love in terms of the aesthetics and set dressing, since it is a haunted castle with a Halloween look to it, something we don't see in Sonic games nowadays. But this is a pace-breaking level. You are constantly being halted from continuing the level to do some puzzles in the castle that take a bit to get done. Then when you do get a bit of the level to be somewhat fast, it gets halted again for another puzzle or a section that is pretty slow. Not a fan of this level whatsoever. Prison Island is a level I have a lot of nostalgia for, since as a kid I did not play Sonic Adventure 2, but I knew enough of the story. I always wondered why Prison Island was still a thing since, you know. That happened. But now as an adult, I don't mind that question since there are other parts of the game story that are more distracting than this. The level itself is fine. It is fun to be in a super powered state from the chaos meter and you run through the toxic material and shoot everything, but it goes in one ear and out the other. Circus Park is in a similar vein to Cryptic Castle, where I like the look of the stage, but I never really liked playing through it. But unlike Cryptic Castle, it's not as pace breaking as that stage since you are still moving towards the goal at somewhat of a pace, but still not the best stage I played, but far from being one of the worst stages in the game. Next is Central City, which is one of the worst levels in the game by far. This level is the only level in the game that does not have a goal ring at the end of the level, since the missions in this level are objective based and you are under a timer to do the missions. But it's hard to do the missions when the level is one giant confusing maze that has paths that lead back to where you started. This wouldn't be a problem if the level came with some sort of map to help you go through it, but it doesn't, so have fun digging around in this trash heap of a level. When playing it for this video, I died when trying to find 2 of the 5 big bombs you need to destroy. What a horrendous fucking level. Which also goes for the Doom, good fucking lord. The Doom is one of the 2 flashback arc levels in the game. Similar to Central City, this level is one giant maze, where you need to go around looking for the gold ring, which takes a lot of time. Since there are no defining landmarks in this level, so you have to rely on the checkpoints in this game, which you can use to teleport to any other checkpoints in the level, to find out if you are closer or farther away from the endpoint of the level. Fuck off. Sky Troops is the most iconic stage in the entire game, though I think that is because of the fact that you are on floating ruins and the great music that is attached to it. But other than that, it's similar to Prison Island to me, where I have fun in the moment, but it's not a level that I think about all that much. Call me a hater, I guess. Bad Matrix is also somewhat a maze of a level, since after the first third of the level, you are put on this giant maze of paths that lead to different towers that can be pretty annoying to traverse through. As a kid, I gave up on this level as I could not find a way to progress through the level. Not a fun level to play whatsoever. Death Ruins is another fine enough level to play through, as you are just going through ruins and are mowing down either the gun troops or the black aliens. Nothing super remarkable here aside from the stellar music. The arc is not a typical Sonic level, since most of the level takes place on the Black Hawk, which, like I said in the controls section, basically plays like a Panzer Dragoon character, but this is like the poor man's Panzer Dragoon level, so it was one ear and not the other for me, and I basically say this because I love Panzer Dragoon. Air Fleet is also a level that goes in one ear then out the other, since it's a pretty straightforward level with little to no platform engagement to speak of. Iron Jungle is one of the 2 Eggman facility levels in the game, and this is the weaker one of the 2, as it doesn't really ask much for you besides just move forward and do some slow platforming if you want to, but there really isn't a difference in doing a certain path over the other in this stage. Space Gadget is one of my favorite stages in the game, just for what you can do at the end of it. But aside from that, it's a pretty average stage in the game, where I don't hate it, but it is far from the best it can be. Lost Impact is the other arc flashback level in this game, and lo and behold, it is also one of the worst levels in the game for the same reasons as the Doom, where it is one giant maze that you have to go around to try and find the goal ring, but you are stuck on platforms that travel at their own pace, which becomes a pace-breaking moment in the level, while also not having any notable landmarks. Honestly, for as much as I hate the Doom, I think I hate Lost Impact a little bit more, just the addition of the Wii platforms you have to take alone. Gun Fortress is the final level in the Pure Dark path, and this is one of the few levels I like in terms of the mission structure in the game, which we will get to. But it is also just a fun level to be going through as you're just grabbing a Gatling gun and killing everything with a full Dark Chaos meter. Black Comet is one of the worst levels of the game, if we were talking about the Dark mission for it. But aside from that, it is a somewhat slow level without it, as you are just forced to use the hover pads throughout nearly the entire level. Just not fun to go through. Lava Shelter is the best level in the game, with it being a fast-paced level with some engaging platforming, benefiting from the mission structure, and having one of the best songs in the game and a cool aesthetic. Who doesn't like Lava Shelter is the real question. Cosmic Fall is a level that I despise a lot, because you don't go fast whatsoever in this level. Anytime you do go fast, it's automated, and these flipping, rotating platforms that fall from the arc does not help the pace whatsoever, as you need to wait for them to be in perfect positions for you to go on them, which all culminates in the extended part of the level, where you need to wait for fucking ever for them to come to you, or to be in the right position to be walked on, which is just not fun at all. Finally, there is Final Haunt, which is a cool level in a story context of raiding the Black Comet to take down Black Doom, but it's overall just a fine level to go through as you go pretty fast and destroy things, but not enough platforming to really mix it up. Now, that is just the levels by themselves, but one thing about the levels that make them different compared to the other games in the franchise is the mission structure. In every level, you may have a path where you just go through to the goal ring, but there are also a hero mission and a dark mission. If you do a hero mission, you go towards the bottom of the chart and become a hero, or if you do a dark mission, you go towards the top of the chart and become a villain. There are a variety of missions in the game that range from defeating a certain number of enemies, collecting a certain number of an object, reach the goal ring with some levels like the Lost Impact and the Ark, destroy some objects like in Central City and Sky Troops, and then there are the missions where you have to chase something and destroy it, like the hero mission in Lethal Highway and the dark mission in Air Troops. Now, the idea of having set objectives for a level is not a bad idea. I mean, they did it in Sonic Heroes with Team Theonix, which they could do again and make it better by learning from what they got wrong for them, but instead I think the mission structure of this game is not good, and somehow even worse than Team Chaotix. The first thing is that no matter what side you lean towards, enemies that you are siding with will still hurt you, which makes no sense, as you're on their side. So why didn't they implement a system to have them not hurt you? There's also the fact that they copy and paste the same missions in these levels, like kill all the aliens and kill all the gun troop missions, which just become repetitive in the game that is already repetitive, as you need to do these missions to get all 10 endings to unlock the last story. Yes, you heard me. 10 endings. Each final level in the game has a dark mission and a hero mission, which could be either reaching the goal ring or doing something like destroy objects, enemies, collecting, activating, etc. But most of the time, the mission doesn't really affect anything whatsoever, and is just there to have you have the choice to make the ending you want to get. I mentioned that Gun Fortress and Lava Shelter were the best final levels in this game, and that's because of the mission structure benefiting them. For Gun Fortress, you can go down the path with a Gatling gun, but you can also take the upper path as a hero and skip most of the level, and the gun troops and mechs that want to fight you, which makes it much more interesting to go through. For Lava Shelter, you can go to the end of the stage with Omega and defeat Eggman, but if you go for the dark mission, the lava will change in real time, with the lava rising more and more with each machine you activate, which makes the level change for the better, making it much more demanding in terms of platforming. But for every other level, the missions don't really impact the level design, which is such a bummer to me as someone who likes the idea of the mission structure so much. You can go through multiple paths in this game with the missions you go through, which alter which levels you do. The path I go with in this game is Westopolis Hero, Lethal Highway Hero, Circus Park Hero, Death Ruins Dark, Space Gadget Hero, and then Final Haunt Hero. Not just because I think Shadow is a hero, which I can get into in the story section, but because the missions, aside from the hero mission with Westopolis, are not pace-breaking whatsoever, which makes them the most fun to do. But that is one of 10 I did, since like I said, you need to get all the endings. So you'll be playing some of these levels over and over again, which makes it so boring after a while. Also doesn't help that there are around 326 possible paths you can take, which sounds like hell to go through, since with skipping cutscenes, our run of Shadow takes around 30 minutes, which builds up over time. Anyway, I feel like I've talked a lot about this game, but I still have yet to cover the story of this game, which is a lot to go through. The premise of this game is that Shadow is ruminating on his identity after the events of Sonic Heroes. He has no idea who he is due to his amnesia. He spends his days pondering his origins and what his purpose is, with the only hint to that answer being a memory he has of Maria being shot to death on the space colony Ark. Suddenly, Shadow sees an alien race, who are known as the Black Arms, start to invade Earth and wreak havoc. Initially, Shadow is uninterested in it and doesn't want to interfere, but then he is met by the leader of the Black Arms, who goes by Black Doom, who tells him that the promised time is approaching and instructs him to get all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Shadow then believes that finding all of the emeralds will be the key to unlocking more from his past. It then takes off. Now, the premise itself seems weird when you first hear it, as aliens is something that would feel out of place in the world of Sonic, but nowadays where the movies have it where Sonic is basically an alien, I don't really mind it as much, since if characters like Shadow, Sonic, Tails, and the others exist in this world, then it isn't out of the realm of possibility that aliens exist in the world of Sonic. The premise of the game does work for what Shadow's story has been thus far, as after the events of Sonic Adventure 2, he has amnesia and is constantly wanting to know what happened after what happened in Sonic Adventure 2. It also works for the player, as the premise sounds intriguing to know what has really happened to Shadow before Sonic Heroes, but the problems start from the fact that the writing for Shadow as a character is not good and can be safely described as character assassination. Shadow in this game is written like an edgy teenager, which is not how I would describe him in Sonic Adventure 2 or Heroes. Shadow in Adventure 2 posts memories coming back, and Heroes, while not necessarily the nicest guy in the world, didn't act like an edgy person. He was someone who was more serious than the other characters from his tone of voice and the actions he did. In this game, Shadow has so many lines that feel like they were made to ruin the character, with the most memorable moments in the game being the ones that show off the worst of the game's writing the most.
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald? A Chaos Emerald? You've got to be kidding me, guys. This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
Keep in mind that these cutscenes play in the pure hero round of the game, where you side with Sonic and his friends the entire playthrough. I think what doesn't help the game's story at all is that the core cast of characters of this game in the story is not that much. Shadow only ever interacts with Black Doom, Sonic, Eggman, the Gun Commander, and the Chaotix for one cutscene. All the other characters that show up in this game don't really interact with Shadow and can be classified as side characters if this was a new game in a new franchise. It would have been cool to see Shadow interact with some of the other Sonic characters we don't see that often, like Tails, Knuckles, or Charmy, but it's just a select few, and that is it. In terms of noteworthy characters to talk about, there's the Gun Commander and Black Doom. The Gun Commander is implied in this game to have a history with Shadow, and it is clear, but if you played the different levels of the game besides Combat Fall, you would have no idea what the history really was. But aside from that, his strategy for defeating the black aliens is that he will send every troop to every area and have them shoot them without gathering intel or form any competent strategy. Also, when you do get to the cutscene where he explains his motive for why he hates Shadow with a passion, he brings nothing but a pistol to fight a hedgehog that can teleport and blow things up if he is mad enough. What a smart person this guy is. He doesn't have a name in this game, and we didn't get it till the comics, but not officially until the Dark Beginning shorts that released around the time of Sonic X Shadow Generations. But I just call him the Gun Commander because I do not care about this character one bit, which can also be said about Black Doom. Black Doom, by the name alone, is already an indicator enough that he is not a good guy. It's like say your name is Stabby McStabberston and you are not a serial killer whatsoever. You are lying to us when saying that. But there's also the fact that Black Doom is trying to tempt Shadow with collecting the Chaos Emeralds just because. He doesn't really tempt Shadow with anything throughout the game. All he says to Shadow at the beginning is that he needs to grab the emeralds for him, and that is it. Also, it makes no sense for Black Doom to still be talking to Shadow when you are at the very bottom of the morality chart, when you spent the entire game siding with Sonic and his friends and not him. I don't know what else to add about Black Doom as a villain in this game. He is just so stupid and not an effective villain whatsoever. The story wants you to pick which side Shadow falls under of being either a hero or a villain, which makes no sense whatsoever. Shadow is a character who, like I said, may not be as out there as other Sonic characters, but he is still one of the good guys. You could say that his amnesia causes him to make bad decisions, but even then, Sonic Heroes shows us that even under amnesia, Shadow is still one of the good guys. He helps Sonic and the others at the end of the game, so the idea of making Shadow a villain in this game makes no sense whatsoever. There's also the problem that comes with the morality system in the game. The story you choose to go down will make no sense whatsoever. Cutscenes in this game don't try to make sense with the decisions you make, as it is set to a predetermined path you took, like how I did the neutral mission of Clifford Canyon. But when I get to Skyfleet, it is implied that I did the dark mission of Clifford Canyon, which I didn't. Cryptic Castle has Shadow going after Eggman to find out more about his past, but the cutscenes that show that only exist in Mad Matrix and Iron Jungle, which lead to Lava Shelter, but you can't reach Mad Matrix from Cryptic Castle, so it is pretty mute. The game is full of moments like these, where we try to tell many storylines but fail to commit to them or have them make sense in the context of the game. Like, I did the hero mission of Death Ruins and I get this cutscene.
Having a little trouble with those gun agents, are we?
What a pitiful bunch.
What'd you say?
We're not here to exterminate these poor creatures. On the contrary.
What? What is he talking about?
What are you saying?
All will be revealed tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Shadow, you should rest. You need to be ready for tomorrow's ritual.
You scum! You're going down!
Remove all of the cringe dialogue and tone that this game is trying to show off, and you see that it looks like Shadow did the dark path of the level and then becomes good again, which is not implied whatsoever in the hero path, as you have been killing the Black Arms and helping the heroes, not Black Doom. But I think y'all get it at this point. Shadow is a confusing mess of a story, but not as confusing as the tone it is trying to set. Now, tone has never really been a present issue for Sonic up to this point, as I feel like the tone for all the games didn't really clash with the story. You could say Sonic Heroes' tone clashed with wanting to tell an interesting story with Metal Sonic, but I never really saw it that way. In comes Shadow the Hedgehog, where full stop, the tone of this game is distracting and ruins the game far more than you possibly think. Shadow is a game that was originally going to be rated T for teen, since the subject material was a lot darker than the previous Sonic games. But in 2005, the ESRB released a new rating called E10+, which allowed devs to have material that is dark but still passable to show to kids. So they reworked some of the scenes and some of the story to have Shadow fit under the E10 and up rating to keep their target audience. So I have to wonder what changes were made to this game, since I think the way this game tries to be serious just fails. First of all, this game introduces swear words into the series, with the characters saying words like damn now. I don't mind seeing these characters cussing as long as it isn't frequent enough, but this game has these characters saying the word damn, hell, and scum so many times that it feels like they are trying way too hard to be serious, but fail. Compare this to the Scrapnik Island mini-arc from the IDW comics, where while Sonic does say the word crap when talking to Mecha Sonic, he says it after Mecha is talking about his demise and failures over his lifetime, and then follows up with him telling him what it means to be free and how he can build up his own functions, which works. There is also the fact that almost everything regarding the Black Arms has the word black on it, which can lead to people thinking that the game is racist. I don't think that is their intention when creating the Black Arms, but there are some lines in this game that imply it, like the line Shadow says when completing the hero mission in Westopolis.
Disgusting black creatures, get out of my sight.
Like I said, I don't think it was their intention, but having your main villains have the word black on them and how much the characters say stuff like black aliens and black creatures can make it come off as that. There's also the fact that for a game where you have the choice to face off against the humans, it is kind of ironic that you do not kill any humans whatsoever. In the levels, you can shoot them, but none of them disappear from the level and just lay there passed out. There's also the fact that if you do the dark mission of Air Fleet, the president will be fine and not dead after his escape vehicle blew up, which makes no sense whatsoever. You do not see Maria die on screen. It needs to be implied by a bright white fade back to the present moment in the game, because that is very serious and dark and not jarring whatsoever. But the biggest one is that Shadow and Black Doom point the Eclipse cannon towards the Earth and shoots it in Central City, blowing it off the face of the Earth. But somehow, everyone is completely fine, because somehow everyone is able to evacuate the city and are A-okay. I am not saying that Sonic games need to show show people dying, but either commit to it or don't mention it whatsoever and leave it ambiguous, like Sonic Adventure when Perfect Chaos emerges Station Square. The game also has the opposite problem, where sometimes when it is trying to be serious, the character with Shadow needs to fill it with a lighthearted moment that makes it such a tone killer, like the hero ending of a Cosmic Fall, where Shadow is contemplating suicide but Factor says this.
Hey, don't go there! Yet.
That is the best way to describe the tone of this game. It is a tone killer. It tries to be serious, but needs to fight against the lighthearted characters who would never or do any of the things this game does on a regular basis. Secondly, guns are in this game, which some people take issue with, as it clashes with there being more cartoony Sonic characters around. Now, I am someone who doesn't really see a problem with Sonic having guns in its world, as all the way back in Sonic Adventure 1, police used guns to try and deal with chaos in the beginning of Sonic's campaign. So guns have always been there, and I am not against it whatsoever. I just think Sonic characters shouldn't use guns as a form of fighting like this game does. Finally, we have to go over the new voice actors that played the characters in this game, as they will be the actors for the series until Sonic Colors. The actors that portrayed the characters in this game already got their feet wet in Sonic before with the release of Sonic X back in 2003, which aired in the US until 2005, where it aired its last episodes. After the show ended, they worked on the games, and I think it is fair to say that early on they weren't the best, but got better over time. I won't talk about all the characters in this game, but we'll mention the noteworthy ones for me. Jason Griffith voiced both Shadow and Sonic in this game, and it started pretty rough, I would say. It's hard to describe how I feel about Shadow's voice in this one, since when it's over the top, it sounds wrong, but it's also too quiet, when Shadow had a somewhat more quiet personality compared to the other characters. Sonic in this game has the Ray Drummond problem of sounding a little too much when bringing the character to life. I don't see why Sonic wouldn't have a positive attitude to keep spirits up in a situation like this, but the voice makes it sound like he always has his voice raised.
Woohoo! Now we're talking! Bring it on!
Mike Pollock voiced Eggman and has stayed as the character to this day for better and for worse. But I think he was perfect as Eggman during this run of Sonic, where he is bombastic sounding, but doesn't go too far. It could sometimes carry out a more nuanced sound for the character without sounding depressed. Love early Mike Pollock. Carter Cathcart voiced Vector in this game, and I never really liked the voice for Vector in this game, where it sounds like he has a throat disease.
Well, well, if it isn't Shadow, your timing is impeccable. You know that Eggman fella pretty well, don't ya? Well, we need your help to hack into his computer. Don't ask why, and we don't have any more time to waste.
I don't know if the voice gets better in future games, since Vector doesn't show up much after this game, but that goes for the rest of the Chaotix. David Wills voices Espio, and I actually quite like his take on the character. It is a bit deeper than the voice he had in Sonic Heroes, but I think it fits the stoic no-nonsense ninja vibe he goes for. Amy Birnbaum voices Charmy, and this is usually my least favorite Charmy voice in the series. The voice comes off as irritating after a while, with how high-pitched and raspy it is, making it so that I have Charmy's dialogue off when I am doing the hero mission of Prison Island. Finally, Sheed Schemmel voices Black Doom in this game, and it's one of those voices where they put a voice filter on top of the voice to sell that he is an alien or a different being altogether. But I never really found Black Doom that engaging of a voice, since he sounds like he has one emotion when talking to the characters and only really shows anger during the last story. But I got a paycheck from this game and his voice in Goku from Dragon Ball, so it all worked out. Anyway, we are near the end of this game, so let's talk about the other things you can do in this game. The ranking system in Shadow the Hedgehog is a big talking point when discussing rankings in the overall series, since it was the first misstep in the grand scope of the ranking system. Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes have and still have the best ranking system in the entire series, as it asks you to engage with the mechanics of the game to master the stages, which would then grant you the A rank. In Shadow the Hedgehog, however, it is usually broken in your favor. For the neutral missions in the game, all you really need to do is get to the goal ring at a somewhat good skill level and you should be fine, as the biggest point total for that mission type is the time bonus. For Hero Dark Mission A ranks, you need to get points in those categories that you are focusing on, while also getting a good time bonus from it. I don't know what it is about this game's ranking system, but it doesn't feel balanced, as you could take forever at certain levels and still get an A rank. I killed about as many aliens as I did gun troops in Death Ruin, which hurts the Dark Mission scoring, but still got an A rank. I have gotten A ranks during missions that take an entire lifetime to beat, like Black Comet Dark Mission, where you need to kill every gun troop in the Black Comet in giant rooms that take forever to travel across on the upper had. and still got an A rank. The only exceptions to these easy A ranks are the 2 arc flashback levels, which, surprise surprise, are the 2 worst missions in the entire game. You need to kill all the gun troops in the Doom with fast enough time in this giant confusing maze, and kill all the artificial chaos in this giant slow as fuck auto-scroller with fast enough time to get an A rank. Getting A ranks in Shadow most of the time is just as easy as breathing, but these 2 levels are the rare exception. I did not have fun getting all the A ranks in Shadow, and I sure as hell am probably not going to do it again, unless I am bored enough to get all the achievements for it on retro achievements. In the levels of the game, you could find 5 secret keys hidden around them, which unlock the secret doors that could lead to either shorter routes with flying vehicles or wormholes, or even just some extra artillery. I like the idea of the secret keys, as they ask you to explore the levels inside out to get them so that you can unlock a goodie in the level. It also helps that when you pick up a secret key, the game will automatically save the game in the game data, so that you don't have to go back in the stage to find them again. I wish I did that for the red rings in Sonic Lost World, but that was a story for another day. If you get all the A ranks in the game, you will unlock Expert Mode, which is basically the hard mode from Sonic Heroes, where you will go through all the levels in the game in a set order with an increase in difficulty. I played through all of Expert Mode on stream with some friends, and needless to say, if I didn't have them there with me, this mode would break me. Oh fuck! Oh fuck! Oh fuck!
Well,
Alright.
Holy fuck! Now I gotta preface the fact that before this video, I never really beat Expert Mode, as I would always be bottlenecked by Cosmic Fall, which is the worst stage to finish from beginning to end. But this time, I got all the keys and it was not a problem whatsoever, but this level still kinda sucks. The levels in this mode are redesigned a bit to be more interesting, a bit more difficult, or to ask you to know the most about the layout of the level, as some levels ask you to do a certain mission from the level, like destroying all the bombs in Central City, going through the dark path on Lava Shelter, or the typical go through the extended part of the level like Digital Circuit. Aside from Cosmic Fall, I didn't really find Expert Mode to be all that much different from the original level in terms of difficulty, which just made it a mode that I found to be interesting, but not something I would want to go back to all that much. Easily the weakest 100% reward in the series so far. Like I said, if I had friends join me on this mode, I would have died of boredom.
The only thing I know about fucking...
What the fuck? What the fuck was that shit? That was so stupid. That is horseshit.
what happened?
He fell into the abyss.
Happens to the best of us.
The final extra to talk about is the 2-player mode that was added to this game. I played this with my good friend Iggy Minuus, and needless to say, it was fun, but part of me wonders if that is because of the fact that we are 2 goofy people in general, but it is standard PvP multiplayer from that era. You shoot each other till you die. There are 3 battlefields, and Lava Shelter is the best battlefield in the game, as it basically becomes the final battle of Revenge of the Sith. You play as Shadow and the Shadow androids, though some of them have guns built into them, so some of the androids are better than others, like the best ones are the blue and pink androids, since the machine guns are better than the rocket launchers. I don't have a lot to say on the multiplayer mode of this game, since it's a neat little extra in a time where you could have both single player and multiplayer content in the same game. With all that out of the way, let's get into the last story. The last story begins with Shadow having gathered all of the Chaos Emeralds from doing something, because this game doesn't tell us which ending is the canon ending. We are in a Black Comet-like area, so it has to be an ending from either Black Comet or Final Hunt, but then we see the city on fire and the president with the gun commander, which could imply that the events of the Ark Dark Mission or Airfleet Dark Mission happened. A few years ago, I heard someone say the most likely ending was the hero ending of Semi-Dark, where Shadow defeats Eggman and the Black Comet, but Shadow says that he has no allegiance to human or alien, which makes no sense with what happened at the beginning of the last story, but whatever. Shadow is about to give the emeralds to Black Doom, but Sonic, his friends, and Dr. Eggman tell Shadow that he is going to use the emeralds to destroy the world, which is the most obvious thing to see from a mile away. Black Doom uses the Chaos Emeralds to chaos control the Black Comet to the Earth's surface, and then reveals that he helped with the creation of Shadow 50 years ago. He gave Jared Robotnik a piece of his and the Black Arm's DNA so that he can create Shadow, which I guess makes enough sense since the last Ultimate Life form was a lizard. Sonic and his friends try to stop Black Doom, but the gas that Black Doom emits in the area paralyzes them, all but one character.
The humans are your enemy.
Did
I gave you
die?
life, Shadow.
That's why you were created.
Please help me, Shadow.
am Shadow the Hedgehog. I've left the past behind me. No one can tell me what to do now. I will destroy you, Black Doom!
I gave you life, and this is how you repay me? The irony of it all is I gave you life. Now, I'll take it back.
Shadow!
You're our only hope now.
This then leads us to the final level of the game, The Last Way, which is where I started to check out of the game even more than I was doing the last few runs to unlock this last story. The Last Way is not a satisfying final level to end the game on, since it is just one final example of how the team was strapped for time making this game. Most of the rooms you go through in this level are primarily level design that were taken from Black Comet and Final High, like the many hallways and the swirling loops, which just makes the final level feel somewhat uninspired and leads to you wanting to just get the level done and over with, which is also how you are supposed to play the level, as you are meant to kill as many black arms to fill up your chaos control meter so that you can progress through the level. At least you can use the red alien guns, which are the best guns from the black arms. After the level, Shadow confronts Black Doom, but Black Doom reinstates that he helped with the creation of Shadow, which we already do, and tries to take control of Shadow's mind. Meanwhile, the Chaotix are dealing with their incomplete data that they got from the semi-hero path, which just makes no sense, but we are over that now. The data turns out to be a video message to Shadow from 50 years ago, which they broadcast all over the world and the Black Comet somehow. The broadcast tells us that Gerald worked with Black Doom so that he could finish Shadow, so that he can defeat the Black Arms, so he built the Eclipse Cannon to destroy the Black Comet and the Black Arms. So I guess if you want an answer as to why there's a giant world-destroying weapon on the Ark, there is your answer. Shadow is able to overcome Black Doom's mind control and uses the Chaos Emeralds to transform into Super Shadow to deal with him.
You defy me, so be it.
Now, I haven't mentioned boss fights up to this point in the game since I don't think they were worth mentioning, but I think if you've seen videos on Shadow the Hedgehog before, I think you know what I think of Devil Doom. He is a painfully easy boss. Shadow in his super state has the ability to dash, which is helpful for getting to Devil Doom faster, and can shoot out his Chaos Spears to attack Devil Doom. But Devil Doom is such a simple boss, as all he seems to do is teleport, hurl a bunch of objects towards you, which you can destroy for Chaos Spears. Then when you get in close, he becomes a little more annoying as he uses the meteors around him to attack you, and he shoots you with his eye laser move. This part of the fight is even more annoying since the auto lock system in the game gets confused, since you will sometimes hit a meteor when you want to attack Devil Doom's eye, and Devil Doom will go to the other side of his body to the other eye. So you need to dash to get towards him, and then will sometimes teleport to the other side of the area, which makes it oh so fun to fight. Overall, just not a very fun fight to go through, but at least the music is kick-ass. Similar to Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, the main theme of the game plays during the boss fight, which is I Am All of Me, which is hands down one of my favorite vocal songs in not only this game, but in the entire franchise. The song perfectly reflects Shadow in the game overall, with his struggle of finding out more about himself, his dark past, and how at the end of the day, Shadow is whoever he wants to be. The song also fits musically with what the game was trying to go for until with its grungy guitar riffs and use of beat with the drums. Just a banger this track is, and is probably my favorite Crush 40 song in the series.
Impossible. I am the supreme being that rules this universe. I am the immortal life form. I am the ultimate power.
This is the end of you, and the end to my cursed past.
In the end, Shadow uses his power of chaos control to teleport the Black Comet in space so that it can be destroyed by the Eclipse Cannon. Back on Earth, all of the characters are rejoicing over Shadow's victory in defeating the Black Arms, and the Gun Commander and the President talk about how they are wrong about Professor Gerald, which is one of the biggest retcons in the entire series. Now, the idea of Gerald making the cannon to destroy the Black Arms in the future to protect the Earth when Maria was alive is a-okay on my books. That is a retcon I can live with. The idea that we now need to see this character in a good light always rubbed me the wrong way, as not that long ago with Sonic Adventure 2, Gerald, after the events of the Shadow Project, went insane and basically reprogrammed Shadow to destroy the Earth because of what happened to Maria. I guess it wouldn't be that bad or distracting if the writing implied that he is now forever a hero instead of them realize that if it wasn't for what happened in the arc, none of what happened in SA2 would have happened, or that while yes he did do good, we should also recognize that he was a morally gray person. But that's just me. The game ends with Shadow on the Ark, overlooking the Earth, letting go of his past.
Goodbye forever, Shadow the Hedgehog.
I hope this video was enough to show you all that I have to say about this game. It is far from the worst Sonic game I have ever played, but there's just something about this game that makes it so interesting to talk about or even play on the few times I actually feel the drive to go back and play this game and the few levels that I actually enjoy from it. At the end of the day, Shadow the Hedgehog is a game that is all about duality from the gameplay, with it wanting to go back to the adventure style gameplay with the core moveset that the game gives you from the jumping and spin dashing, but also wanting to go with a new style of gameplay with the gun gameplay, mission structure, branching progression, and the vehicles you can use. The duality of its story, wanting to expand on the past events of the previous games and wanting to move forward with some of the storylines that were set up in previous games, but also wanting to take the story of these characters and Shadow in a different direction with a much more serious tone and multiple directions for their possible futures. There is even the duality of its own reception, with people either thinking this is one of the lesser or worst Sonic games ever made, or one that is actually pretty good and warrants being played and talked about. There is even some duality in me when it comes to talking about this game. I grew up playing it and thinking that it was one of the coolest Sonic games ever, but I can also see why this game did not work for a lot of people and became somewhat of a black sheep in the franchise. Overall, Shadow is a polarizing game, and that is all it is going to be, and there is no stopping that. But we need to accept the duality that comes with talking about this game and seeing all that it has to offer, or else human nature will take control over what we want to see from this franchise, which is what happened to our next Sonic game. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and as always, have a nice day.